Was Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.
Yes, sir. We also doubled our random sweeps and are monitoring a lot of phone surveillance, indicating a high percentage of conversation concerned with the explosion.
Mr. Dascombe, what are we doing about that?
We're calling it an emergency demolition. We have spin coverage on the network and throughout the interlink. Several experts have been lined up to testify against the Bailey's structural integrity.
I want Prothero to speak tonight on the dangers of these old buildings and how we must avoid clinging to the edifice of a decadent past. He should conclude that the new Bailey will become the symbol of our time and the future that our conviction has rewarded us.
Whoever he is, Chancellor, he's very good.
Spare us your professional annotations, Mr. Finch. They are irrelevant.
Apologies, Chancellor.
Gentlemen, this is a test. Moments such as these are matters of faith. To fail is to invite doubt into everything we believe, everything that we have fought for. Doubt will plunge this country back into chaos, and I will not let that happen. Gentlemen, I want this terrorist found, and I want him to understand what terror really means.
You know, if that was a movie about the United States, I would think it was a documentary.
Okay, so here's the lady that's going to be behind the man behind the curtain, so to speak. You ready?
Information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious.
Well, she's not a horrible singer, so maybe she'll have a career on Broadway when this does not work out. Also, some other interesting tidbits I found out in the Daily Mail. She's complained about hordes of men tracking her down on social media after TV appearances. She prefers strangers to follow her Twitter account because she speculates that many who criticize her online are jealous of her verified blue checkmark and media career. This is a lesson in don't tweet like your every thought, especially if you want to head some disinformation board one day. I don't know whose ambition that is other than hers. But this
Yeah.
I'm sure about that. That seemed a little. I mean, I hate to see Fox and Friends ever because I think that's the greatest proliferating, the greatest collection of women that everybody wants to have sex with, but me. So
it looks like a soap opera, doesn't it?
Okay, so let's get through the intro. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed are greater than the legal services provided by other lawyers. I'm Harry Steele. You've reached the Backstory Podcast number 126. I'm joined today by my client and partner in crime, Mr. Paul Ripp. How are you today, Mr. Ripp?
Very good. Here with an opinion, just like all of us.
And Mr. Russian, I hear you've been at a garden party today.
I'm telling you, it was
your
the
parasol?
nicest. I'm telling you, it was the most beautiful thing I've seen this side of the river, the way the flowers were out. And my mother and father did such an incredible job with a 2-year project they've been putting on to be part of the Kingwood Garden Club annual tour. And I think they slayed it. I'm here to tell you, it was incredible.
Really? Well.
So let's
I'm
talk.
Some pictures and y'all will see it makes Bellingrath Gardens look like a mini golf course.
Oh yeah, let's see some next time. Really.
So let's talk about Biden's Ministry of Truth, or what's it actually called?
It's going to be
the
Department of Disinformation. And Harry, I'll let you lead on this one.
Well, so I'll lead with this. Katie Britt says she's really excited about Elon Musk buying Twitter.
Well, good for Katie.
That I think that's the lead, right? Is that everybody's scared what Elon Musk is going to do? So we've started the disinformation board, straight out of V from
Harry and I discussed this earlier, and there's very few times when Harry and I find common ground. But one of them that we always agree on is free speech. And I'm here to tell you, we have not had a U.S. censorship bureau since the Second World War. And that, if you read the machinations of what they want this department to do, that's exactly what it is. They want somebody patrolling and saying, hey, this is disinformation and this isn't. One of the things that I have long been rallying for is explaining to people that freedom of speech and the First Amendment doesn't have anything to do with how a company wants to run their business. If Facebook wants to say we don't want this on our platform, or Twitter or Instagram or whoever, that's their right. Not even a right. They can do that because that's their business. If the U.S. government says you can't say that, that's the violation of the First Amendment. If the government makes a law that says you can't say this, that's a violation of the First Amendment. So if we have a federal agency that says you can't say this, y'all better start putting metal detectors in post offices.
That's right. Well, no. But what about when they say you must say this? Not you can't say this, you must say this.
That's the same thing. That is what, Harry? Compelled
speech.
And
what
that
third podcast was about.
Of the First Amendment of the United States.
Okay, well, I'm glad we agree. Paul, do you keep giving them the high ground? Keep giving, you keep saying these Trump lovers, blah, 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 but keep giving them the high ground, man. They'll take it.
I don't know anything about this Ministry of Truth. That's just totally. Well, hadn't heard anything about that.
There is an effort right now to form an agency right now, and I'm not sure if it's going to be under the National Security Administration or under the Department of Homeland Defense. But it's basically a federal agency to combat misinformation.
And what does that mean?
Yeah, that means somebody in an office somewhere at GS4 is going to be reviewing tweets and texts and emails and God knows what else as to whether or not it's disinformation. I think that is a private sector job on private sector platforms and has nothing to do with the United States government. Period.
Yeah.
What would they do? Review it, say it's disinformation?
That's a real good question. Throw your ass in a gulag. Real good question, Paul. Where does it go from there?
That the fact that it's so ambiguous, Paul, the fact that we don't have a concrete set of this is what this department's going to do tells me that one of two things is going to happen. I'm a binary person, right? There's two types of people in this world: those who fit people into very small groups and people that don't. So what I'm trying to tell you is there's two things that's going to happen. One, it's going to get buried in government bureaucracy and nothing's ever going to get done with it. Or two, it's going to become the most sinister and socially debilitating government act passed since the Patriot Act.
Wow. Agreed. We agree on the Patriot Act too, Paul, just for reference. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So this week, Mobile Bay Magazine cover article, Lower Alabama's Endangered Species. Meet the 6 most vulnerable species in Lower Alabama. Those are the loggerhead sea turtle. You familiar with that thing, Paul? Didn't you say y'all used to eat them down in Belize?
In the early 70s, it was legal, and we used to catch them. And we damn sure ate them. We didn't eat eggs as much as we did the turtles themselves.
So how about the red-bellied turtle? You ever seen that thing?
I've seen it, but I hadn't eaten one of them.
Yeah. So the river species. And then y'all are familiar with the developments that happened down on Fort Morgan back in the 90s, and they turned all the feral cats loose. Now we have 20,000 of them, so they eat all the beach mice. So they had to go out there and count them.
Alabama and Perdido Key Beach House. It's like, man, those things are multiplying exponentially.
Exactly,
down there. I don't know what the problem is.
And inversely proportional to the beach mice. And then there's the piper. Y'all are familiar with the sandpiper, same thing. Yeah. And then the black bear, and estimates suggest that nearly 100 species have become extinct in Alabama since colonial times.
I would add the Baldwin County Honest Commissioner, the crime-focused DA, the deputies that can swim, and I don't know, pretty much criminal justice and civil justice in courts.
Those are all extinct.
Species are extinct outright.
I didn't think of that. So, talk about something you don't hear ever. When's the last time a public health employee was killed?
Goodness gracious, man.
I really hope it was a health inspector.
Oh my God. It was public health department employee.
Well, it might have been a home health person, or there's no telling what. But anyway,
it was if there was ever a son of a gun deserved to be eaten by wild dogs, it was a public
health inspector, huh? Hey, my old scoutmaster was a health inspector, Mr. Zahner.
20 years in the restaurant business, buddy. I can tell you, if it had been legal to sick dogs on them, woo, they'd have built a memorial for them in Washington, D.C.
All right, Paul Rip, I think I scooped you on this.
Yep. I saw this today. I was going like, you got to be kidding me. Now, let me ask you something. This whole thing started out with a toll. And if you remember Mr. Burrell's
of a bunch of retards I wouldn't trust with a potato gun.
Started out by they didn't need federal money. They weren't taking federal money, so on and so forth, right? Here we are now. The mega grant includes $5 billion in funding through the bipartisan infrastructure package approved by Congress last year. ALDOT plans on making application for some of that money. Now, I just want to hear if they're able to get the money and move forward, how they're going to be critical of getting the money but taking it at the same time. It's going to be very interesting. And I think Alabama should have to produce more than half of whatever it takes to build the damn bridge. No tolls at all, period.
And finally, new rule, if this sort of brazen larceny is concerning to you, then you might want to look at how much of the trillions of dollars in free government COVID relief money was just flat out stolen.
Absolutely.
Viewer warning, what you're about to hear may be triggering, and if it's not, it should be. Let's start with...
So, Raines, I have a theory. What was that? What was the movie about North Korea where the guy was the talk show host and he had the real serious friend that was the producer?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, Bill Maher lets his friend, the producer, actually write a whole script, and I think he wrote this because I don't think this is Bill Maher talking, but right on the nose.
What we spent, the checks the government sent out to get America through the pandemic. There was the Families First Coronavirus Response Act for $192 billion, the Payment Protection Program for $484 billion, the Consolidated Appropriations Act for $900 billion, the American Rescue Plan for $1.9 trillion, and the CARES Act for $2.2 trillion. Although for how much of that money actually made it into employees' pockets, they should have called it the Who Cares Act.
Well, but there is right now a Justice Department task force that is investigating just in the Payment Protection Program alone over $5 billion in fraud cases.
Oh, yeah.
$5 billion with a B, and that is a fraction. That is just over 1% of the money that went out, which means not that there was a very small percentage of fraud, but that they just haven't found it yet. But you're looking at $5 billion in public fraud just in the Payment Protection Program. I'm here to tell you, if they ever get into investigating all of it, the Coronavirus Response Act and the money that went out to individuals, we'd have to build another Justice Department building, I believe.
Okay, well, let's listen to a little.
That was like BP.
Let me bring it home for you.
Funds. Palm Beach. Thank you, one guy. Palm Beach, Florida, which has 160 golf courses, got COVID money. What'd they do with it? They built a golf course. Several nonprofits overseen by an organization called Feeding Our Future got $65 million to feed needy children during the pandemic. But it was actually a massive fraud, and the FBI says almost none of this money was used to feed children. That's like something Trump would do. The government sent $1.4 billion in stimulus payments to 1 million dead people. We gave billionaire Kanye West millions so he could continue making the world's ugliest shoes. Retire. Here in L.A., lots of people actually do live in their car. So 6 years ago, we passed a bond program to provide housing for the homeless. A couple of months later, it came out that each unit would cost $350,000.
Jeez,
you know, there's an old adage that government cannot transfer money except by means of a leaky bucket. And I get that. I get that. Some amount of leaking is inevitable. But when it's all holes, it's not a bucket anymore. What you got there is a handle.
Do you agree with that?
Yep.
That is a fact.
Yep.
Every once in a while, the guy hits one out of the park. And what did we do with it? What are we going to do with our COVID money in Alabama? We're going to build a bridge and a bunch of prisons.
Yep.
Right?
Bridges and prisons.
Wasn't this money supposed to go to protect people's paychecks and for businesses, for hospitals, for anything other than, I mean, I certainly didn't know we were doing a big infrastructure package. Did you? I mean, I thought we were doing things to get us through COVID. So, Mr. Russian, I want to take you back a couple of decades.
Oh, my God. Will you look at the absolute glory that rests in that photo? That's where it all began, as the saying goes.
So, on the back row, you have me, Mr. Russian, and President Clinton. Do you remember the cutout of Bill Clinton that made the photo?
Cutout, yep. Yep.
Put that up there.
So, anyway, I thought you'd find this interesting, Paul. And Raines and I, these were not there when we were in the Keys, but lionfish, an invasive species native to the Mediterranean, I think, got out during which hurricane did we just miss down there? The big one.
No. Oh,
90s, early 90s.
Opal.
Hurricane Andrew.
Andrew went through there, and they think that these things escaped from a pet store during a hurricane.
Yeah, it used to be, if you were in the Keys and you saw a lionfish and you were diving with a group, you'd get everybody's attention and point it out because they're beautiful to see. They're incredibly toxic, though. If you grab hold of one of them, their spines get you. It's like grabbing a Portuguese man of war. And I'm here to tell you, you'd see one in the Keys and you'd be like, wow, that's incredible. Now it is literally, you can't dive in some places. There's so many lionfish.
Yep.
Yeah. We didn't have any in Belize. And then all of a sudden, I'd say about 8 years ago, they started showing up there, maybe a little bit earlier, and never saw one ever until then. Now they're everywhere. And pretty good size, too. They're great eating.
They are good eating. That's the only good thing. The good news.
And there's they're hard to clean, and there's no season on them. So
well, you got to use gloves, and you got to have you a pair of, gardening shears to cut the spines off.
Yeah, you got to. It's like, and on top of them being toxic and dealing with all that, they have a triangular bone structure.
Yeah, like a triggerfish,
like a triggerfish or a
boxfish,
a cowfish, something like that. So they're incredibly difficult to cut. But I've seen somebody like Gordon Ramsay fillet a monkfish with his eyes closed. So practice is perfect. We just get a bunch of people start eating lionfish. We'll knock their population out. Just see what it did for shrimp.
No kidding.
Well, it's on the menu in a lot of places, coastal.
So Raines, I think it was on Sunday morning a few weeks ago, this story, the CBS story about the Alligator Lighthouse, Alligator Reef.
Yeah, I got a little background on that for you.
Go for it.
The lighthouses that serve the Florida Keys region, there's actually 8 of them that go from just north of Key Largo all the way down to the end of the shallow water Keys, which is right around Big Coppet or mile marker 12. I saw on some social media that 4 of them in the lower Keys had gone listed by the U.S. government surplus office. And do you have any idea how much they were listed for, what the starting bid was?
$2.
$12,000.
Yeah.
Really?
What cost you $500,000 to replace all the screws in that thing?
I mean, these things were built at the turn of the century.
It's like cast iron and shit in that thing, Paul.
Yeah. These things, they were built to last because they've lasted a long time, but they're not going to last forever. And these things were built at the turn of the century, and the reason they're being stricken, well, they were stricken off the government, what's called the light list, where they were considered navigable lights. They were stricken off the light list decades ago.
Right, 70.
And they've only been maintained as, by the state, they've only been painted. So they can identify, like Alligator Reef marks one of the most dived reefs in the John Pennekamp National Forest.
Well, and it's also the reason that lighthouse is there, and the reason it's so popular with divers is so many ships wrecked on this reef, and there are all these ballast piles,
rock piles everywhere. Around, all around Alligator. Yeah,
really cool.
They're looking for people to buy them. I think the state, this nonprofit, may have gotten hold of Alligator Reef Lighthouse, but buddy, I hope they'll be able to pay the freight on it when the U.S. Coast Guard bills them for when that thing falls over in a hurricane or something. Because the lights, I saw a guy that does nothing but rehab really weird old properties like that. And even he was saying, I don't care if they're giving it to you for $1,200. Do not buy any of these lighthouses. You are going to throw money into a hole in the water, literally, trying to rehab these properties to make them habitable.
So do you know who owns Middle Bay Lighthouse?
Who?
The Historical Commission.
Yeah, I read somebody wrote a short story.
1889.
Early 2000s about sneaking onto the light and spending the night on it because they got caught in a bad squall.
Well, let me tell you what, they must be immune to disease because that thing is covered in bird crap.
Yeah, it would be like spending the night in a bat cave.
No kidding.
All the guano and everything else. I'd be scared. I'd wear a breather.
Right, N95 on that trip for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't eat the fish around it.
So did y'all know that Joe Biden is coming to Alabama and that KIV will not be involved?
Coming to Troy.
Right.
Yes, sir. Coming to Troy, Alabama to visit the Lockheed Martin plant where they build all of the javelins. Governor Ivey will not be involved because she doesn't believe that he's a duly elected president.
Or she doesn't want to have her picture made with him is what it is because it's an election cycle. But she did have time to go to the graduation of the Alabama Forestry Commission's Employee Academy. Can you believe it smells? You know it's election time when the governor's going to the graduation at the Forestry Commission.
Let's regress here just a minute, Raines. Now, just a minute ago, we were talking about the $5 billion infrastructure package, right? So what is the best way to secure that for the governor not to show up when the president shows up? I mean...
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Politics. I'm sure old Joe understands.
Politics can work this way too. Oh, she don't want to show up? Scratch that. That's how that works.
Show might happen. So
that's how that works.
Mo Brooks is on the rope. So what does he do? Joe Biden ought to be impeached. Mayorkas should go with him.
Well, Mo, I believe, I can't remember which one of us, but we predicted that Trump was going to jump ship on Mo Brooks. And that's exactly what he did do. So, a lot of people that are pro Mo Brooks, I'd like to know how they feel now about Trump just dropping him. I think he spent, some ungodly amount of money for the MAGA Mo signs. And then Trump dropped him. Well, he can't replace the signs. So you got the MAGA Mo signs all over the place. And it's totally contrary with no endorsement. So
yeah, but that's the good thing about Alabama politics is nobody can really tell.
Right.
Right.
Maybe if we had a Ministry of Information, they'd clear this mess up for us. Yeah, outside money floods Alabama race for U.S. Senate.
And nobody wants to debate or show up for a debate.
And, let's talk about the other guy being a part of the military-industrial complex. And the fact that because of Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission, we now have unlimited money flooding these things. And So Kyle Whitmire retweets this every week. Did y'all know that?
No, I didn't.
The
but
same
I'm glad
article.
to hear that he is.
Yeah. So I figured I'd throw it up again every week.
Well, we should send Kyle Whitmire Murray Lawrence's case. Let him know about that.
So while he doesn't have time to fool with this, especially during an election against somebody like me, what are we going to be fighting? We're going to be fighting the Justice Department
on border policy, and you're not even a border state.
Okay, no, on trans youth. This new trans youth law is unconstitutional.
Oh, that'll keep us.
So it'll be the Justice Department versus the Attorney General's office. All taxpayer money paid lawyers.
Reminds me of Squidbillies, where old Early Collar once said, if they keep segregating down there at the high school, the whole place going to be nothing but bathrooms.
I tell you, the Attorney General, that position should come with very strong shovels, because that's all they do is just start digging holes.
True. Construction contract awarded to Montgomery Contractor. I did actually see an article this week on AL.com about that. And, of course, we're keeping up with Brookside, seeing what's going on. The examiners are there. It turns out that they got a bunch of people that shouldn't be police officers working on the force. And Did
you read that? Did you read that piece about Brookside? Because just John Archibald did a fantastic job.
I watched the video and everything. Yeah,
he painted a picture of the closet where there was a supply closet where they kept the inmates' eating utensils. Plates, styrofoam plates, and napkins, and cups and spoons, and all. Well, they also used it as an evidence locker to store something like somebody had found. They got a bunch of. They tore the carpet out of a fraternity house or something and rolled it up as evidence and stuck it in the closet.
Oh, my God.
And it was just like the receptionist and the dispatchers talked about how bad it stunk in the room. That's how they handle evidence in Brookside. Amazing piece of journalism. I hope everybody got a chance to read it.
Absolutely. So does everybody know that eggs have quadrupled in price or something like that? I wouldn't bought eggs today.
That's why you see a lot of people buying these Tractor Supply chicken coops.
Well, I tell you, one thing that is there's a certain, I guess, a trope, I guess you'd call it, among economists, and it's called the milk challenge. And it's asking economists how much a gallon of milk costs. And if they can't tell you, then they're a shit economist. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's always held true, that for the last 10 years, milk's been around $2.50 a gallon. It's hit the $3 per gallon mark now.
So do you guys do Trader Joe's when you get?
We have them, but I don't shop at Trader Joe's because there's not one near me.
I haven't.
So I'm one of those people that when I'm in a big city or town or whatever, and they have a Trader Joe's, I'll go there and buy like their Trader Joe's brand. I don't know, poppy seed dressing or something.
Grocery store or what?
It's a grocery store. It's a higher end grocery store.
Kind of a grocery store, a little bit higher end, I'd say, and not necessarily fresh produce and that kind of thing in the ones I've remembered.
Yeah.
More of a boutique-y kind of shopping experience. But anyway, they've discontinued a lot of things because of lack of production power. So a judge upholds Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking conviction.
No surprise there.
Well, it just seems like a whole lot of justice delayed and denied. So, Raines, some interesting things are happening on the Ukrainian-Russian border. For the first time since World War II, Air Raid Sirens went off in Russia because the Ukrainians were bombing them.
Well, first of all, that's not the first time since World War II Air Raid Sirens have gone off in Russia. They've gone off just as often as ours have. They have drills just like we do.
Well, you need to call the New York Times and tell their editorial board they don't know what the hell they're talking about, because I was simply reading it.
There's this article, it really does a good job of explaining in the lead here the most opaque developments of the war. somebody in the Ukrainian Defense Department said, yeah, we did an air raid inside of Russia on a strategic site. And when they say strategic site, it's either a supply point, logistics point, hub, or military facility. All right? You can't hit a hospital and say it's a strategic target. So something blew up, and there was a big fire, and air raid sirens went off because they didn't know what did it, and the Ukrainian military immediately claimed credit for it.
Okay, well, did they pull a Doolittle's Raiders and get a couple of Cessnas and load them up with some gasoline?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I talked about a couple things in the last couple of podcasts, and one of them is the fact that Russia, while it does not enjoy air supremacy, it does enjoy air superiority. Getting a strike force inside, this was supposedly over 200 miles inside the Russian border, and hitting a target and getting them out, the odds are in the trillions. I mean, it's just not done. I mean, it would literally be like a bunch of guys in Cessnas dropping bombs, and the odds of that happening are very slim. A suicide type strike, yeah, you got a little bit better plausibility, but the Ukrainians don't do that. And what I'm going to throw out there, and this is in no way influenced by any sort of information I may or may not get from people around the Washington Loop, is that this was a infrastructure failure of the Russian army, and something in one of their bases caught on fire and blew up, and the Ukrainian military claimed that they did it. So like I've said before in many podcasts, propaganda.
Maybe the Ministry of Information can tell us what's true.
Both sides of the coin.
When they're not TikToking limericks.
Now, there was a Ukrainian helicopter strike just across the Russian border in the Donetsk region earlier in the war, in the first 2 weeks of the war, but that was a singular outing, and it wasn't an attack on a facility. It was an attack on a troop movement. And that was executed. But that was when the Ukrainians still had helicopters and pilots. So,
more importantly. So anything much change on that map, Rains? Same.
Well, remember last week I talked about that steel plant that's the size of like 3 city blocks?
Right.
Yeah,
Maripol. Hiding in it. In Maripol? Yeah, it's not there anymore.
The whole thing's gone?
Well, if you look at photos, satellite photos of it, yep. They pretty much leveled it.
Oh, my God.
So whoever was in, I don't care what either side says. Looking at that picture, if there was anybody in that steel plant, they are dead.
Damn.
All right.
Speaking of dead,
81.3 million infected in the U.S. with SARS-CoV-2 with 993,712 deaths. Dr. Scott Harris has recovered from his COVID-19, and I just caught this today. Coronavirus cases and hospitalizations are rising in a majority of American states in what appears to be the first widespread increase since the peak of the Omicron surge in January.
That's all we need again.
Hospitalizations remain low, partly a reflection of greater immunity in the population. Herd immunity.
And vaccinations.
Well, I got both. So I got vaccinated and I got Flurona. So I feel super protected.
Damn, that
so
was
Paul,
a long time ago.
It's time for the Rip Report.
Time ago there, man. Well, the Rip Report I am writing, have not completed yet, but it's going to be on our legislative delegation here in Baldwin County. And the delegation, you can read here, was an act in 2000-275. So that's 2000. I didn't start following anybody in the delegation until 2010. That was when the BP oil spill, and there was no delegation. What happened there was Senator Pittman at the time had gotten a lot of the BP money. I think a total of $636,000 from Fairhope, $98,000 from Perdido Beach. And because he took those contracts himself, the rest of the delegation, if you will, they couldn't do anything. They were powerless to get him not to take the contract. And that resulted in a very weak effort on their part in Montgomery to get Baldwin County's fair share of the BP money. And so God knows how many millions of dollars that we have lost. But the delegation right now is State Senator Greg Albritton, State Senator Chris Elliott, Harry Shriver is state representative, along with Alan Baker, Joe Faust, Steve McMillan, and Steve just passed away, didn't he?
Did.
Yes, sorry to hear that. And Matt Simpson, and then along this year will be also Vivian Figures. Now, in the past,
and also another state senator from, where's he from? Way up in Thomasville or somewhere. Anyway, I'll show you the map.
There's one more then.
There
okay, well,
more.
in the past or since 2010, our delegation in Baldwin County has been represented by whoever the state senator is. At this time, it's Chris Elliott. And we, the constituents of Baldwin County, the voters, do not hear what the legislative action is going to be until the legislation starts. There's never any delegation meeting for the public. There's no vetting of these things. And you just don't know what's fixing to come up unless Mr. Albritton or Chris Elliott, when they propose something, and that's it. And then you take it from there.
So one thing I want to say, if there's anybody that's kind of senior on our delegation, it's not Elliott, it's Albritton, and he's the chairman of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, which is an extremely powerful position to be in. And they did not create we've always had a delegation. What this act did, it created a delegation's constituent services office, which the county commission has to provide. You know, that's the reason they spent the $1 million on finishing out the upstairs of the Fairhope Satellite Courthouse, was so that Elliott could have a nice corner office up there.
Right, you're not allowed up there,
at the cost of the county. Do what?
I said you're not allowed up there, are you?
No. So all the doors up there are access, have access keys or whatever you call them.
I'm quite sure
cards.
I'm not invited.
As far as I'm concerned, it's my building, dude. So this was an opinion piece. And I just want to give it some perspective, okay? So what this guy's claiming is when it comes to spending, Alabama is bluer than New York and California. Well, what he's saying is we had a larger expansion of our budget this year than either New York or California.
Proportion.
And he's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's kind of
with all these
stretch.
good Republicans in charge. So Ziegler says the Secretary of State is now the third most important race on the ballot.
I can believe that. I can believe that.
I do not.
Yeah, that's a bunch of rubbish.
Oh, yeah? Well, who do you think's third?
Attorney General?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it'd be governor,
senator, attorney
lieutenant
general,
governor.
Lieutenant governor's not running. He's
it's Senate, governor, attorney general.
Yep.
Actually, I think personally the attorney general's race is the most important one to me.
Me too.
I guess it's your third.
Yeah. No, if you the attorney general's one to me is the most important.
So think about this:
until they resolve the corruption, political corruption, and the corruption's going on, it's so acknowledged. I mean, that's what gets me that I don't understand is that Alabama accepts the fact that we are the most politically corrupt state in the United States.
So let me ask you a question, Paul. Who would do something if the Secretary of State did do something illegal during a state election? Who would do something about that? The Attorney General.
The people that could possibly do it would be the feds. It'd have to be federal.
Well,
because nobody in the state would do it.
Nobody in the state currently in their position, I don't believe, would do anything.
Right.
So here's a shocker, Paul. explosive real estate growth in Mobile and Baldwin counties. Residential construction is through the roof.
Totally through the roof. In fact, that delegation, when that was 2010, indicated a population in Baldwin County of 182,000. It's now estimated to be 250,000. And I think it's probably eking up towards 300,000, to be honest with you.
Okay, so let's talk about the housing market in general. Rent skyrocketing nationwide, up 20% on average over 2 years. And some places, of course, rightly so, we're going to exclude Miami from this because they don't count. Right. But Tampa, New Orleans, Phoenix, Vegas, look at Memphis, man. Holy crap. Can you imagine being in them coming to you and say, hey, you know this place you're renting? It's going from $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month. If you don't like it, you can move somewhere else.
Hey, right. Single bedroom apartment in Fairhope is $1,200 to $1,400. That's not shabby.
That's Fairhope. You go up the road to Robertsdale, there's plenty of apartments available, $600 a month.
I don't think so. I think you're wrong, Raines. I think we're talking $1,200 to $2,000 is typical.
Yeah, I tell you what they did, Raines, at a colonial property in Gulf Shores. They went up about 250 units, right? They went up $200 on the rent at one lick and had like 15 or 20 people move out, and they just happily moved them out and moved the next ones in. And it just filled right back up again. Oh, yeah. So they just keep inching those rents up, and they're up to, they're up higher than even Fairhope is down there. Workers that are working at the beach in, say, Ono Island, Orange Beach, in that area, they're having to come from Daphne and Robertsdale, 1 hour drive to even get there. They can't get closer than that and afford to live in those locations. They're so high.
Yep.
It's an inventory problem. So Gulf Shores moves forward with major road work, public safety projects amid rapid growth. And like I said, when you come on down to the beach this summer, get ready for the delays. I think I'd have waited for the end of the season to start that. So did you hear that they've come up with a fix? Have you seen what they did down there? They put cones up in the water so that not to use that side. I'm not kidding. That's their temporary fix. And so there's one place on the whole ramp where it's level. So that's the only place you can use out of this, damn near an acre or 3 acres wide boat ramp. There's about 50 feet of it that's actually level left to right.
So wait a minute. Is that the solution?
Yeah,
well, until they come up with something else.
Nothing's going to be done about it, or it's going to be tied up in court until 2045. So looks like absolutely nothing's going to be done about it. Just put a Band-Aid on it. It'll be all right. Trust me.
I mean, it's good enough. Hell, it's Alabama. What'd they expect?
Exactly.
So
what are the commissioners? Any commissioner comments on that?
No, the county engineer was all red-faced, last week on television about it. But talking about the endangered species, I thought we'd talk again about the endangered rivers and the fact that these 10 endangered species are all under the threat of this coal ash pile that we've decided to leave here. And the do-nothing Jake Legs at ADM are building a new office over in Mobile. Have you seen the plans for that thing?
No, I haven't.
Looks like the damn Guggenheim or something.
There's not a more useless office in the state of Alabama than ADM.
Except for
they're horrible.
Well, state office. Let's talk a little bit about Fairhope. Have you heard anything else about the old folk roller coaster?
They had the open boxcar rail that's going to be like a roller coaster, and then someone said a slip and slide, and the newest thing is a
slip and fall,
a newly invented type of slingshot that they'll launch from the top to the bay. That's for only people that can swim with wheelchairs. So we'll have to see. But God knows, I mean, on a serious note, I'm telling you, This was a $6.2 million project. I bet you they're well over $1 million in design fees. They're almost, hell, I think they're going on 2 years overdue. I don't know how they're going to get the money on time now.
So if you look at the preliminary plan originally, the one that got politicized in the last election, right, you'll notice that there were jetties, a new riprap, a new beach, right, and this is all tiered so that you could get from one side to another and use these pathways, and it would
wouldn't have to take the slingshot.
You wouldn't have to take the slingshot. You could actually park up here, and the grade would be sloped at a grade that met the ADA requirements. Well, that would cause us to have to regrade this historic bluff.
Oh, God. Jeez.
So now we're going to have whatever, a third of the project that we should have, and a bunch of boats are still sunk down there. And, I mean, it's a joke,
I think they got the boats up, but they don't have the electric working down there yet. Guys,
all that conduit hanging down in the water and everything.
I think they got some of that up, too. But they have downtown Fairhope is in a mess with infrastructure work that's been neglected entirely during the Can administration. And that finally has caught up with
20 years of good old boy and stealing from the debt, robbing Peter to pay Paul, taking money out of the infrastructure funds and putting it into flowers and stuff.
And the current mayor used to work for that mayor.
True that. So let's do some lanyard real quick. teen who shot 9 at Lab People Stadium will serve 2 years in prison. And did you see Bess Rich? She says, I can't believe this. Well, it was a plea deal. The person that made the deal works for you. What can't you believe?
Man, 2 years in prison, he shot 9 people?
You don't remember that?
I do
2019?
Remember that, but how the hell did he only get 2 years?
Because he didn't kill anybody.
Ding, ding.
Damn. Okay, Lanyap. The draft stays in Lanyap. 7 local draft prospects could make history by Tommy Hicks. That's a main article in Lanyap this week. You can get it in a newsstand or you can get it online. I'm only going to cover a couple of articles in here, but there's a lot in there for entertainment, food, music. So get a Lanyap and keep up on it. One of the 2 articles is the pay cut. This is by Rob Holbert. University of Alabama verifies the police chief's salaries withheld. The bigger part of this whole article is Mr. Holbert's persistence and inside contacts that keep feeding him all of this information. Evidently, the police chief was docked and paid for a couple of weeks, and everybody is, hush hush about what's going on. The University of Alabama nor the Chancellor Finis St. John's office explained the reason why the chief's salary was truncated from January. Hooks received $22,000 raise in October, 15% increase, and brought his current rate of pay to nearly $168,000 a year. The question of how universities are handling sexual harassment complaints is a nationwide issue, which several high-ranking higher education leaders forced to leave their jobs over the past year due to their own mishap with subordinates or trying to whitewash the behavior of other administrators. Last year, the University of Alabama made a harassment settlement with former employee Leslie Abernathy that has already cost the school nearly $240,000, a number that increases every month by $10,000 as she continues receiving regular payroll disbursements despite no longer working there. You got to ask yourself, what I wonder, Harry, I wonder if anybody in Tuscaloosa News or any of them have been following any of these Lanyap articles about the University of Alabama. And then you have all the alumni that live in here in Baldwin and Mobile, and I haven't heard any of the alumni support Lanyap and ask the university what the hell is going on. because this is just one of many issues Mr. Holbert, the editor, has written about in the last 5 or 6 months involving, well, a little bit longer than that, involving the University of Alabama.
About a year
Well,
almost. Yeah.
Well, you can tell that you're an immigrant to Alabama because when it comes to the university, the capstone, as it were,
true,
there's a whole lot that somebody's rug gets pulled up and things get kicked under.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
You
used to
must
live in
preserve the grand halls of the university. And
Right.
God forbid any of this shit going on at Auburn, they'd have burned the Capitol down by now.
Right, and this just adds to the overall corruption problem for the entire state. The other
So, Paul, do you still think
Yeah.
the Senate race is more important than the Attorney General's race? I mean, these are all things that the Attorney General could take up, right? People no-pay jobs, Steve Flowers' job, on and on and on, right?
Well, no, I think the Attorney General's office would be more important.
Right.
Definitely. Another article in this week's Land Yap is separation agreement. Jury favors local real estate office in January 6th dispute. Any of you that remember this quite some time ago, the federal jury ruled April 18th in favor of a local real estate firm that was orphaned by its corporate office last year, less than 2 days after learning an employee traveled to Washington, D.C. To support conservative causes on January 6, 21. This is NAI Global, a New York-based commercial real estate brokerage firm, and they have an office here in Mobile. Mr. Pete Ream, is that how you pronounce his last name, Ream?
Yes.
R-I-E, Ream. And I've heard of Pete before. He was accused of going to the Save American rally, which he really did not do at all. They were scheduled to go to some meetings with Jerry Carl, and at that time the sixth thing was taking place, and they had the bomb threat.
Just happened to be there that day, huh, Paul?
Right.
Just big
Correct.
coincidence.
And then he was, then it came up later that the complaint against him was filed by Carletta Davis, the local business owner, an aspiring real estate developer that had some problems with Mr. Ream before. So, it's that's how that got going. But anyway, ultimately NAI Mobile was damaged as a result. The jury awarded the maximum amount of damages allowed by U.S. District Judge Chrissy Du Bois, $86,437 for rebranding and $1,164,000 for lost profits.
Shoo.
You should read the whole article. Allegedly, NAI Global alleges Ream's actions damaged the corporate brand. But what happened was Mr. Ream's employees stood behind him. So the corporate office ended up firing and taking away the franchise, if you will. And so that's how this thing spiraled out of control. But when you look at the facts that, he did not even go to the steps of the Capitol, that he was there at that time, true, but he did not participate, and that the corporate office would let it get out from under him just because of one complaint. I mean, Harry, you and I, we make some complaints, but we try to do it with a lot of facts and data, not just at random shooting in the dark. But anyway, get your Land Yap. The RIP report probably be out by Monday, and check with us on deal-with-the-devil, the case of Murray Lawrence, who's been wrongfully convicted by courts in Baldwin County.
Well, you'd be happy to know we were watching my wife and I were watching a documentary, or we were watching a show that's on Amazon right now called Outer Range, which is great. It's like Yellowstone, but with science fiction. And
the mystery hole.
Yeah, at one point the sheriff says, "I've got this case ironclad. The only thing I've got is the coroner's report's no good, so I can't possibly go forward with it." And my wife was like, "Oh man, that sucks. You can't overrule a coroner's report." I paused it. I said, "Sit down for a minute, because have I got a story for you?"
I'm telling you, seriously.
She says hands down it's one of the most regrettable decisions she's made in the last 26 hours, was to say to me, "Well, you can't overrule a coroner's report." Partner, listen up. I tell you just how that happened.
Guarantee you can. In Baldwin County, you can.
I go to the website and everything. She's like, "God."
You can just come up with a wild-ass theory that has no facts, basis, or nothing, just a complete theory of fiction, and try to sell it to the court. People should be very well aware of this going on. There'll be a lot more about this.
I wouldn't say you got to sell it to the court. I would say it's a seller's market in Baldwin County as far as misinformation goes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep pushing it for sure.
So, and I'm sure this will be in the next one, Paul, but it was on. This is from Laniap. State Representative Steve McMillan, who announced last year he would not seek re-election after more than 40 years in the legislature, died of brain cancer yesterday, according to a statement from the Alabama House Majority Caucus. McMillan was appointed to succeed his brother John as House District 95 representative in 1980, but he was re-elected in 1982 and in every election afterward. House District 95 represents South Baldwin County, including Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. McMillan was also the owner-operator of McMillan and Associates, a real estate firm in Baldwin County. And I can tell you, I have known Mr. McMillan my entire life, and he was a very good man. And as Raines put it, my political rabbi, if anybody knows that term of art. And he'll be deeply missed, especially by me, because he was a friend of mine. I talked to him fairly regularly, and he's helped me over the years in many, many ways.
Well,
So,
I can tell you that.
we'll miss you, man.
I can tell you back in 2010, he was one of the ones that I spoke to about Pittman taking the contracts for BP, and he was very, very upset about it. But I don't think that he had enough support within the delegation to lean against Pittman. It was Pittman was driving the boat, and everybody had to just go along with it. And I really do believe that cost Baldwin County many, many, many millions of dollars because when it got to Goat Hill and they saw what was going on, nobody from Baldwin County was up there with their hand out. They just split that money up and went up north and everywhere else.
So one of the things that I want you to include in your RIP report, and I thought long and hard about talking about this, but I've decided to. So this week I was in court, and I was one of many attorneys there for a docket. I think it was Thursday morning, and anyway, the judge had a special setting that afternoon. We got started at 9, which mean and then they have to kind of do a rundown, and you tell them what your time estimate, and then the judge goes back and parses up that 2 hours over time amongst the 40 cases on the docket. And the judge and I had a candid conversation about the fact that my client we'd made this application for an emergency hearing because it related to his ability to see his children, and the judge said, well, it was candid, and the judge said, well, everybody out here needs to talk to your legislative delegation because we need more judges. And she broke it down for us. And she said, I only have 2 hours this morning, Mr. Steele. And I don't have 30 minutes to give you.
Damn. Wow. That's why we're dead last. That's why we're last with things like that are going on.
Well, and at a time when we're flush. You hear all the legislators, right? We're flush.
Yeah.
Well, we repealed the business privilege tax this year, but we don't have any money to give to the court system. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Stagnate the court system.
So on to the good news. May 27th begins red snapper season. Call
Okay,
call
how
down
many
the
can you
Zeeks
get?
and get you
How many can you catch, Harry?
I think you can keep 3 this year.
And now, how much is it going to cost you to go out on a boat to catch 3 fish, which you know you're going to catch in the first 15 minutes, probably?
And then you can't keep any off fish. You can't keep trigger or amberjack during snapper season. I don't know, but you take them off, and the damn dolphins get them before they get back down to the bottom.
Well, I can tell you why. Because if they open season all fishery, when I say all fisheries, I mean all species. If they open season all species during a very tightly regulated recreational season, it opens up colossal amounts of abuse of the creel limit. And people will go out and we called it a meat trip, where you just stuff the boat full. And if anybody asks, you tell them they dolphin fillet.
Fillet and release.
Yeah, fillet and release, which is horribly illegal in most states.
All states. It's illegal to have a filleted fish on your boat.
If you do it the right way. I mean,
You better eat that damn thing if you fillet him on your boat. You better have a grill on there.
Mississippi Department of Marine Resources confiscate a boat, trailer, and truck at the dock for doing that. So I don't really know why people still do it, but let me tell you, people do it. And if you open up all species, it makes it easier. So that's to answer your question.
And while you're enjoying that snapper, think about all that poo-poo that's in the water. There's May 19th is a public hearing for the Fort Morgan Sewage Treatment Facility owned by Baldwin County Sewer Service, who is regulated by no one except for ADEM related to its effluent discharge.
Right. Well, I'm glad to hear those people are fighting so hard out there.
Blame game. So House passes amended legislation to make municipal court share information. Still no directive or any idea from AOC or the bar when any of that's going to get implemented.
No one's sharing anything yet.
No.
Okay.
So we got a blue alert from Lauderdale County. White female correction officer Vicky White missing in the line of duty. Suspect is a white male inmate, Casey White. Casey White is 38-year-old white male, 6'6", 252. I wouldn't want to fight that son of a bitch, would you?
Really?
Vehicle is located in a parking lot in Florence, Alabama. Direction of travel is unknown. Call 911 if you've seen these people. And that is the alert from the Alabama Law Enforcement Community Information
Center. Are they related in any way?
Says not. Says no. And there's a better look at him. Kind of looks like a young guy. Mike Durant. Lauderdale County Sheriff says correction officer and capital murder suspect. She was escorting the courthouse are missing. If anyone sees them, call 911 right away. And then there's a look at her. Authorities in Northwest Alabama are searching for sheriff's official and capital murder suspect after both went missing on Friday. So one of two things is going on here. Either he snapped her neck and is in the wind, or it's another Mario Santobi case.
Right.
They're locked up in a hotel room together in Atlanta.
We'll have to see what happens.
Doing meth. So,
well, considering that this guy was facing trial for a murder for hire as the hitman, I'm beginning to believe that he probably just saw this as a means to escape. And if they find that woman, she might be in different area codes.
Right. So, just a little, I'm going to be back in Florence and, as it were. And, we actually did a podcast 8 months ago, about Florence. Florence, from the Revolving Restaurant, the Space Needle Restaurant there in Florence. So, if you want to go check that out, be some interesting information in there. And so I thought we would wrap this one up by taking a walk down memory lane. Earlier, I guess it was last month, the Bellaton Property Owners Association received $1 million jury verdict, a fraud case.
Right.
Involving the
Baldwin
same
County
people
sewer.
In the straw man case.
Baldwin County sewer.
There you go. Same old stuff. And what do we have coming up? an election?
Right. That's the question that we need to ask Mr. Ball, Armstrong, Underwood, Gruber, and all those that are running too. What about an unregulated sewer system in Baldwin County? How do they stand on that? And how do they stand on the sheriff's department expanding at the rate that it is? Do they not find that, a little overwhelming? I've heard that, they didn't need the additional deputies that they're seeking for the next 3 years. I mean, they have one hell of a budget, don't they, Harry? Like the second largest amount of money goes out into the sheriff's department.
And they're the fourth largest sheriff's department in the state.
Damn.
That's right. And
I guess that's what he's shooting for, being the largest, huh?
We can't keep all the people safe, unfortunately.
Safe, right. Okay.
Right. And more to my point about how important that position is. Now remember, when was this? This was in September. This broke.
Right. We've heard nothing since.
Our former Speaker of the House, Paul Hubbard, sitting in jail talking to lobbyists and current members of the legislature about trying to change the law so he can get out of jail. And guess what our Attorney General does? He releases these redactions. So we can't tell. Most of them, he won't even tell us who he was talking to. Right?
Jeez.
So you tell me, Paul, why is it that the government has this information and won't release it to the public ahead of this election?
Oh,
it's incredible.
But
is there an ongoing is it like the body camera footage that Lanyap's asked for? Is there an ongoing investigation?
Right.
Because I don't see any difference. It's a recording held by the government. The government's accountable to the people, correct?
Right.
Except in Alabama.
It's Alabama, though.
Or especially Baldwin County.
It's Alabama.
All right, guys. Well, we've reached the end of our time together.
Okay.
I have enjoyed it. Mr. Russian, what do you have planned for your Sunday?
Working in the yard. Good grief. My parents' yard looks like something out of a movie set, and my yard looks like somebody doesn't own a lawnmower. So we're going to be working on it tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll be working on mine, and I'll be reporting for jury duty on Monday, which I hope to be exempt from because I'm an asshole.
Hey, here's to you, Paul. I'm
afraid that does not exclude you from jury duty.
I don't know. I can really be a big one.
My husband. He's in the state legislature, and he's worked very hard with a small group of men to bring insurers to the area and been very involved in trying to make the whole situation better. There's been what would you call it, a think tank or a brain power group that has tossed around ideas and been very responsible for bringing insurers back into the area.
I had heard so much about it and decided that if I was going to go out and encourage other people to do it and explain it to them, that I ought to do it myself personally. So that's what we decided to do. And we felt like it, not only would there be a premium savings, but it'd just be a smart investment, because I think it's just a question of time before the public is going to realize the advantages of it. I think the marketability of it, we're going to find out. We're in the process with the Baldwin County Association of Realtors now of keeping records on how long the fortified homes are on the market, and I really think it's going to create a better demand for the fortified housing and probably higher prices too.